Okay, hopefully I'm coming out live. So let me just check. Always best to check these things before we start whittering on. Let's have a look. Excuse me. Quick slurp of coffee whilst people join. Let's have a quick look. Let's have a look. Let's have a look.
But also,
hang on. That's yesterday's one. There we go. Okay, it should be coming out live. So if you can hear me and you're watching live, can you just post a comment in YouTube just to let me know? Let me just see. So hopefully, let's just. Yeah. There we go. Cool. Oh, all good. Excellent. Okay, perfect. All righty. So people are joining. Excellent. Let's just wait for a couple more people. So day 4 of the Relabelling Reactivity Deep Dive 2024. Really, really fantastic couple of days thus far. And it's been going really, really well. Lots of people have asked loads of questions on the previous lives. Monday, I talked about the 5 causes of reactivity, and certainly in my observations, dealing with countless reactive dogs all over the world. There's definitely 5 key things and 5 key areas that are, I'm going to pull this a bit closer, at the core root of reactivity challenges. And if we can identify which one is applicable to our dog, we can we can help the dog overcome those challenges and hopefully move on to having a better life. You know, you hear so many horrendous stories about people, altering the way in which they live their life, getting up at ridiculous o'clock to walk their dogs. I know we should adjust that a bit more. You know, becoming almost socially isolated, withdrawn from society because of their dog's behavior, whether it be trying to avoid issues happening, whether it be trying to navigate situations that can be contentious and challenging, or excuse me, or simply just because of the stigma attached to owning a dog with some reactivity challenges. It can be really, really all-consuming, and it can be quite oppressive to the owner. And as a result, they end up, becoming almost a pariah from society. And that's not what I want. That's not what, for me, owning a dog is all about. I've owned dogs for well over 30 years. And they bring me so much joy. I love owning them. I love walking them. I love taking them places. I love spending time with them. I love being in their company. I love sharing my joy for owning them with other people. And that's what I want for everybody. I want everybody to have that relationship with their dogs. So Relabelling Reactivity is my community of experts. The first day we heard from Kat Farrance, CEO of Movement for Modern Life, the online yoga platform, talking about how we can be more responsible, not responsible, response-able. So can we respond correctly in a situation where we would normally feel a level of anxiety or concern? So being able to have a standard list of response, or practicing how we control our apprehension, how we control our anxiety, how we control our concerns in the heat of the moment is really, really integral for moving forward. Often when we look at reactivity, we're so intently focused on the dog and the dog's behavior, we're not actually looking at the owner. And for me, that's a real shortcoming on the part of dealing with reactive behavior, and also being able to help people move forward. Then we talked to Lou Holmes. Lou Holmes is obviously a good friend and one of the experts on the Relabelling Reactivity team, who talked about the benefits of nose work for behavior in general. She told us about a story to do with Chip, her own dog that had some reactivity and confidence challenges, that unfortunately had a really quite horrific attack when he was in that pivotal period of development, and how she overcome his challenges because of giving him a vocation, giving him a purpose, and empowering the dog, which is really what we all want. So today we've got, again, another expert and a member of the Relabelling Reactivity team who's just joined us. I'm going to just add her to the stage, so to speak. Welcome. Hi, Angela. How are you?
Hi, good morning, Kamal. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm really, really good. Excellent. So Angela is a friend, a student, and also an expert in a lane. I'm going to give her an opportunity to explain what she does and what she can offer in terms of individual, what she does in her daily job. And she's going to talk about a really fantastic phrase. I'm not going to steal it. I'm going to let Angela talk about it in a little bit more depth, which she uses throughout within, I should say, the Relabelling Reactivity community, which I just love, and I'm going to let her I'm not going to steal it from her, but it's such a powerful phrase and a great way of looking at things. Previously in the two lives, we talked to Lou and we talked to Kat. They referenced, Lou referenced a study which talked about how nose work can make dogs optimistic. I've got the details of that. I'm going to share that in the chat shortly. And also Kat referenced about the 90-second window of holding on to emotions. I'm going to share that information as well because a couple of people have posted. For some reason, Kat and Lou tried to, Kat tried to post and it wouldn't post for some weird technology being what it is. But I will share that information so you have that. So welcome, Angela. So Angela, tell us a little bit about what you do and how your daily work and how it relates to reactivity.
Okay. So what do? I do a number of things, but I guess you might say that I'm a life coach, as to put a phrase on it, although that doesn't really describe it. I don't have a big couch and a corner office, and I don't go around following people with a clipboard. Mm-hmm. But so what I do in my daily job, I work with people who want to understand more about who they really are and what they really want from life, rather than who they think they should be or what they should want from life. And there's a bit of a clue here in the title of what we're going to be talking about today. So I help them to sort of create a life that fits with who they really are. And that involves life with dogs as well. And so that's what I do. I work as a coach, I work with people one-to-one, and I've trained thousands of coaches as well to be able to help other people too. I'm also recently, which I'm very pleased about, now an animal trainer for TV and film, which is a recent development and I love it when things all start to join together, because my real passion, my love is dogs, like the rest of us here, no doubt. Dogs, and particularly competed in dog sports with my golden retrievers. So I've got 4 dogs. No, I've had 4 dogs. I've got 2 currently. And if we ever wanted a personal development program of self-discovery, across the earth, get a dog, because it's just a whole journey of, I know more about myself now than I ever wanted to or thought I needed to, thanks to my dogs who've been great teachers. But also my work helps me with them too. So it works beautifully together.
Yeah, I mean, and just sorry, Angela, just to because you haven't just stumbled into this profession. Your actual background is you were a nurse in the NHS. So from having a job with that entails compassion, caring for people, looking after their health from a physical side, you've almost transitioned to doing it from I suppose a more internal, intrinsic slant of things.
Yes, absolutely. I was thinking about that earlier today. I've always been fascinated with human beings and how they work biologically. Like at school, I used to love human biology. Plants, I didn't give a hoot about, But human biology and how humans operate, both, as you say, physically, but also psychologically. And a big thing that I'm really interested in is the human experience itself and how the human experience really works, not how we often think it should work, or the misconceptions, lots of misconceptions about what's really going on, and also how our minds really work and how life can just be so much more simpler if we just understand a couple of things about what's going on for us. So we often get caught up in, if we get anxious about stuff, then the thoughts start, don't they? There's anxious thoughts anyway. We feel anxious. And then the story begins of there must be something wrong with me, or, I need fixing or something like that. But actually we're just human beings, or beings having a human experience. And part of that would be getting a bit anxious, getting excited, feeling sad, feeling angry. All experiences and all emotions and all feelings are all part of the human experience, and it's nothing, we shouldn't be afraid of it. But it's when it when we start taking too much notice of some of the things that are not helping us, that's when we end up in a place where we're not feeling great. And it doesn't need to be like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm gonna let Angela talk through her phrase that she coins and she uses regularly in the Relabelling Reactivity community. To really elaborate, I love it. I think it's such a powerful way of looking at things. So Angela, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna
hop off in the nicest possible way. Okay, so you've gone, so I guess that's over to me. So, hi everyone. So the phrase that Kamal's referring to, and the title for what I'd like to explore with you today, is about shoulding on yourself. Now, I love this phrase because as soon as I use it, it makes me smile and smirk because of my filthy imagination, because it sounds like something else, doesn't it? But it describes it perfectly. So are you shoulding all over yourself? Now, I am a serial shoulder, but as many other people are. And it's a phrase that was coined by a therapist called Albert Ellis. And he, I think, became known for CBT, for cognitive behavioral therapy. And it's back in the 60s. But it's a phrase that just sort of sums things up, I think. So what does it really mean? So shoulding on yourself is when you hear yourself talking to yourself, it's not just yourself, about all the shoulds, all the things you should do, or you should have done, or you should do that next, or the things you must do, the have-tos and the expectations. And these sound quite innocuous, and they're just normal phrases in language. But with them often comes a feeling of not so good, a feeling of pressure, of having to conform to something, generally, or self-flagellation, like giving ourselves a hard time when we say things like I should, coming out of the ring. I do dogs competitive obedience. The number of people I hear coming out of the ring going, I should have done a training round, I should have done this, I should have done that. And you can just see by the whole demeanor that that's not a great place to be at that point, because we're being quite hard on ourselves. We make decisions in the moment, and choices in the moment, and that was the best thing that we could do then. So what if we were just a bit kinder about ourselves and what we say to ourselves? So you might have come across phrases yourself like my dog should behave in a certain way, especially when we've got dogs with reactivity issues. I think we pile a load of shoulds on ourselves. Then I certainly did when with my dog, who was a little angel and turned into quite a reactive fella because I kind of misunderstood him. But he was thrown out of training school and competition obedience class, and then went on to compete at Crofts with loads of dogs all around him. So, things are possible. So my dog should behave in X way. I should train my dog better. My dog should respond like this by now. By now are another couple of words that really don't help. Or I should be making faster progress. Those kinds of things. When we hear ourselves saying that, that's when we're shoulding on ourselves. That's what I mean by that. And it doesn't feel good. And we can get caught up in a should thought storm. Try saying that. Not only is it possible to should on ourselves, but it's possible. It's like the verb to should now. It's possible to should on others, and it's possible for others to should on us. I'm sure we've all had the experience when someone else is telling us what we should and shouldn't do. And it depends how you take that, as depends on the result of that conversation. And we also put that on other people about what they should do and what they shouldn't do, as well as ourselves. But today specifically, I want to look at how about shoulding on ourselves and what we can do instead of that. So part of this, number one, is being aware of us doing it. But number two is, so what can we do about that? It's okay being aware, and now what? Now what? So that's what we're going to be focusing on or exploring today. So shoulding is really blame, judgment, self-criticism about our failed expectations. So we've had an expectation of how life should be, and then it didn't live up to that. We have an expectation of going on a dog walk of what should happen, and it doesn't end up like that. So there's a failed expectation. And instead of looking at it as a fact of this is what happened, let's learn from that. We sometimes, if we get upset or angry or frustrated at what happened, that's often because we'll feel it more than hear it, if you like. Then we're probably suffering from shoulding all over ourselves in that moment. And so that's essentially what it means. But now I want you to ask yourself, if you recognize any of this and it resonates with you as something that you might find yourself doing on a regular basis, if you're a serial shoulder, or even just a weekend shoulder, ask yourself this: where is it written in stone that you should anything? So that's the question I sometimes ask myself when I find myself shoulding like this. I go, well, who says? Who says, and where's it written how I should be with my dog? How's it written about what I should do with my dog? There's good advice out there. But, in the moment, we make the best with the decisions and with the resources we've got at the time. And why would we do anything else? And why would we think we should do anything different? So it's not written anywhere other than the story of should that we start to create, or the story of should that someone else gives us. But let's focus just on ourselves first and our inner work and the stories and the talk the language we use with ourselves. And the other question is, if you had a friend who was shoulding on themselves under the weight of like a great expectation that they'd failed to meet, if you were a good friend, would you should on them? Chances are no. You'd probably be a bit more compassionate with a friend who was telling you about everything, what had gone wrong and how they were feeling. And so what I'd invite you to do at moments of shoulding is to be your own best friend. And so what if you were to be the best friend to yourself in those times when things have gone not as you would have expected or not as you've liked? Or you're perhaps thinking about the fact that you might be going out in a minute and you've got a backpack of shoulds already on your back to take with you. What if we leave the backpack of shoulds at the door and just go and take the dog out and go training or competing or whatever it is that you do? And then let's have a look at what the nature of should is. But before I go there, does anyone have any questions or comments about anything that I've said so far? And I'll see if I can find them in the chat.
I'm monitoring them for you, Angela. So the background. So if there are, I'll share them with you. So don't worry, okay. I'll give you. But I don't think there is at the moment. But if you do have questions for Angela, there will be time, obviously, towards the end of the live. Yeah. But post them on the thread, and I will pick them up at the end.
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, so let's move on then. So what exactly is a should? What's the nature of should? It's a word, yes. And it's language. But should is also a thought. You could call it your should thought. And the thing about thoughts is that they come and they go. And the other thing about thoughts is we don't have to act on every one of them. And we don't have to pay attention to every thought that we have. We can choose. That's where we've got choice. We might not have as much choice in the content of the thought as it's happening, but we do have a choice in what we pay attention to. So, for example, in normal daily life, I know that I've got a thought of I want to like after an argument with the other halves, for example, there's a I should leave thought. But I don't pay any attention to that, and I just call it my leaving thought, because it comes and goes and it doesn't mean anything, and I don't really mean it, and I'm very happy where I am. But every now and again this thought arises and I just call it my leaving thought, and that's it. And that makes me laugh too. So it's like it has no power. Thoughts don't have power unless we give it to them. So thoughts are like music passing through us. They come and they go, and the music changes during the day at various times of day. Sometimes it's music we like, sometimes it's music around and we're not really that aware of it. And so imagine now an analogy of you're in a car. Okay. And when you're in your car and you've got the car radio on, if we tune into, say, Radio 1, you'll get Radio 1 type of music. You'll get modern music. If you tune into Classic FM, you get classical music. So whatever we tune into is what we get. It's the same with our psychology. Whatever we tune into is what we get. So if we tune into Fear FM, we'll hear scary music and we'll hear scary thoughts. If we tune into Should FM, guess what we get there? We get shoulds. Judgment and criticism music. Imagine that. And if we tune into Love FM, we hear love songs and self-compassion and songs that we feel good with. So if you're a serial shoulder, it's likely that you have got the radio preset permanently to Should FM or something similar to that. So what about changing the channel? What if we change the channel for self-compassion or Love FM? Because the thing is, it's your car and it's your radio. You can't choose what music the DJ is playing, but you do get to choose the channel that you listen to. And so whatever you're tuned into is what you'll get. So try tuning into the okayness that's beneath the okayness, and you'll hear what you need to hear right now. Now, what the hell does that mean? So, from what I've seen and what I've experienced, not okayness is often like us being in the choppy sea. There's turbulence, there's chaotic noise, there's, we're being bashed about or we feel like we're being bashed about from pillar to post. But in the sea, on the top of the sea is the waves and they're responding to the weather. But at the bottom of the sea, the seabed is always okay. It's always there and it's always stable. And it's the same for us. Underneath the noise and the choppiness of the sea, we have this innate peace and calm and okayness. And that's what I mean by the okayness underneath the not okayness. Okay. So that's all well and good, isn't it? So how do we tune in? How do we really tune in to a different channel? The metaphor is great, but how do we do that? And this was something that, used to puzzle me. It's like, well, yeah, it's okay in theory, but how do we do it? And the way that we do it and the way that I've discovered that works for me in many situations is about pausing and just getting quiet enough. So our minds are quite noisy a lot of the time, especially if there's lots of shoulds going on. It'll be noisy shoulding as well, and perhaps a bit chaotic and going around in circles, that kind of thing. But by pausing and getting quiet enough just to give ourselves a good listening to. And how often do we do that? How often do we just stop and listen? And I mean listen deeply, not just listen to the cacophony of the brass band playing and the loud noise of the noisy sea, but how about just dropping into a place where we can hear the quietness underneath? And there is where we'll find some wisdom, some intuition, some gut instinct, something that can be helpful. A quieter voice of reason, maybe, that's not dramatizing everything that's going on. And so I've got a couple of questions for you again here. As a coach, I ask questions. That's what I do. So what does it feel like to be really listened to in life in general, by a friend or a loved one. Now, I ask this of my groups that I teach, and we do an exercise around this about listening to each other in a way that is non-judgmental and that's kind and compassionate. And then people feel really listened to. And what they usually and I ask them afterwards about what does it feel like to be really listened to like that. And often they come back with a list of things like, and ask yourself this, and maybe make a note for yourself, when you're really, really listened to by a loved one or somebody who cares about you, how does that feel? And people often describe it as a feeling of being cared for, respected, valued, loved, seen, heard, those kind of things. Good stuff. And it feels good. And then I also ask them to explore what it feels like to not be listened to, or to be listened to by someone who's judging them. And then it'd be no surprise you get a list of they feel judged, disrespected, uncared for, unloved, that they're insignificant, and a whole list of other things like that. So the question is, how often do you listen to yourself like in question 1? Like you love yourself, like you're your own best friend. Now, I know that I don't listen to myself like that all the time, but on occasion, and I'm getting better at it, I will listen to myself like that, especially if turmoil is happening or there's been an incident. Maybe there's been an incident with a dog or something else and I'm feeling it. That's a sign to me to just take a moment, maybe not at the time, maybe later, and just sort of take a breath and go quiet and really listen to what I really want, or really listen to me, not the noisy, shoulding me, but the quiet, gentle voice that's on the bottom of the seabed, if you like, mixing me analogies. And so when we listen to ourselves with love and compassion like that, we can hear our true selves. We can hear our wisdom. We can hear our gut feeling. We can hear our hearts. We can hear our inner voice. And that voice is always there, but we can't always hear it underneath the noise, the noisy mind, the choppy sea, the chaos, the shoulds. And I always used to think, well, how do I know whether it's wisdom or intuition? What if I listen and it's not good? What if it's not good? Well, if it's not good, then it's not your wisdom, it's not your intuition, it's not your true self. Because wisdom, let's use that, or your soul or your spirit, whatever you want to call it, your inner self, will never judge you, will never tell you what you should or shouldn't do, and won't criticize you. It'll just offer a statement. And it's quieter. And if you don't do it, it's your choice. You choose whether to listen to it or not. So it might just be, take a day off. Don't go training today. Look after yourself. It might be just go and have a cup of tea and take a moment and just do something different. It could be something as simple as that. It doesn't have to be like a big mission statement of world peace of what you should do now or anything like that. But a quiet little voice will give you something very ordinary to listen to do, which will help. And sometimes if I'm really in the thick of it, I ask a question of myself and just sort of say something like, so what do I do? Because what would you have me do? What do I do? And often it will answer if we're prepared to listen. But you still have choice whether you take notice of whatever it is. And there's a quote by a poet called Jeff Foster, if you've ever come across him. And the quote is, "The mind is loud and we have to slow down to hear the wisdom of the heart." And I love that. The mind is loud, we have to slow down to hear the wisdom of the heart. And it only has to be for a moment. And then when you start to the thing about if you're listening to the quiet inner voice, whatever it tells you, you will start to perhaps feel a bit lighter, a bit less serious, and feel good about yourself. If you don't, then you're still maybe listening to the other stuff. And that's how you know. That's how you know the difference. So I thought today we might have an experiment with that. Because the more we can do this and the more aware we are of what's going on in our mind and more aware of what we are of what to do about that, and the better we become at listening to our quiet voice rather than all the noise, the easier it becomes in those circumstances where we do feel disappointed and anger and frustration. You know, that doesn't stop. But we just might not get involved in it for such a long time. And then we can be more productive in the rest of our life rather than sitting there mulling it all over for days, weeks on end. Our life with our dogs can stay big and vast rather than getting smaller and smaller. And the more we can enjoy and live a fulfilling life with ourselves and with our dogs, and then the better decisions we can start to make in the moment when we're out with our dogs. And our dogs live in the moment. And being with dogs helps us to be in the moment more. And this definitely helps us to tap into being in the moment and listening to ourselves in that moment quicker, if we need to. So the more we practice it, perhaps, and get used to it, it's like using a different muscle, using our ears in a different way. And so it's not really about what our brain's doing. Our brain is functioning automatically and perfectly, but our mind is different to our brain. Our mind is full of stuff from a different part of our brain. And remember, we get what we focus on. So let's just pause for a moment right now. If you're listening to this as a replay or you're listening to it live now, let's just take a moment right now to get quiet and have a listen. And just listen. There's no should about what should happen. There's no pressure to get anything right or wrong. Just listen and notice what you notice about your own, what you can hear. So if your mind is noisy, just notice that. If you hear nothing, just listen to nothing and notice that. That's quite liberating. And if you hear a quiet, gentle kind of voice whispering for you to do something, then listen to that. And whatever you hear, do that. If you choose to. It's still a choice. If you don't do it right now, maybe do it later. But see if there's anything in it for you. So this might not make great telly, but just take a moment. And if you want to write anything in the comments about what you hear, then do, and we can talk about it after. And when we get quiet in our minds, we make space for fresh insights and new ideas to come in. So that we don't just keep repeating the same things every time and getting the same results. We might have a new inspiration. Some of the things we might hear might actually be talk to Kamal. It might be go to the group and ask for help. It might be go and let off steam in the Relabelling Reactivity group. It might be something like that. And just practice this every now and again on your own. It only takes minutes, seconds even, just to tune in to what you really want. Tune in to what's really true for you. Tune into who you really are. And then on those days when life throws you a curveball, you'll know what to do. Maybe not straight away, but later. And notice how it feels when you truly listen to yourself with compassion and love. How does that feel? It feels good to me. And so finally, when you're planning to go out with your dogs for a walk or for training, down the cafe, whatever you're planning to do with them, leave your backpack of expectations and shoulds behind you. And when you return, leave your backpack of shoulds at the door and enter the house. And you might just find that disappointment or the frustration dissolves a lot quicker than when you should all over yourself. Okay, so over to you.
That's great, Angela. Thank you very much for your insight and your perspective on it. I love that take on it. You know, I think it's such a critical element when you have a dog with a struggle, whether it be, you know, behaviorally, in sports, in what we do. It's really such a common mindset to, oh, I should have done this and I should have done that, and staying in that space. And all you're doing is just taking away from your own confidence in the belief of possibility. And it's really, really important to take that, you know, that quiet time, and that whilst it's good to reflect on and learn from your experiences, not to stay in that headspace. So what would you say then is for people that have dogs with reactive challenges, what do you, and having been in that position yourself, what was the pivotal moment where you started to change and move forward? So talking about empowering people, what was the thing for you as an individual that really started to get you to change your shoulds to your an opposing thought or a different thought?
Yeah, just a different one. It was, so I've got better at it as I've gone on. I think that the pivotal moment was when I really started to really understand about how our mind really works, and that a lot of it I was making up. And I think, and when I saw that, but you can see it in theory, or hear it in theory, but when I really saw it, and when I started to see that whatever I was thinking really had nothing to do with what was happening. But you have to see it for yourself. And and the other thing, this was an interesting thing for me, was that I always used to think, well, you know, we go through there's things like affirmations. It's like, well, why don't I just think myself positive, or just think of visualize what I want to happen, and it will. But on those days when you're having a thought storm, it's not easy to do that. And so it made me start to think about, so where is the link between the training that we do and the skills that we learn? You know, why do people come to dog training? Why am I learning how to train a dog? And what I've discovered is we learn to train the dog, and the training that we do with the dog, and like the things that you do, and the teaching, and everything that we do with that, helps us be in that moment when our mind is doing something completely different. So our mind doesn't necessarily, I know this is contrary to popular belief, we don't always we can still function even though our mind's doing somersaults.
Yeah.
Whereas I used to think, if my mind's doing somersaults, that's it, I can't do anything. Oh, there's no point me going anywhere. I'll just stay here.
Mm-hmm.
But when we've had some training and some skills in how to deal with reactivity with a dog, then what our mind's doing becomes irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because we've got something else to rely on.
Absolutely.
So the training is there for when we are not.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you know that it's really interesting that you say that. So obviously most people that follow me on social media have shared that I used to be in law enforcement. And, you know, that was very much about dealing with a situation, contentious, dangerous, volatile situations. And often internally you'd be thinking one thing, but because of muscle memory and practice, and, you know, hence why you would rehearse, you know, different things, different ways of interacting with people, it become almost second nature, innate with you. But that whilst you're feeling anxious, you couldn't convey that in the moment. You had to put on a persona. You had to, take control of a situation, assure people, and so forth and so forth. And that's a similar process. And I think it's one that you can learn. So a very interesting conversation that I'll share you with my friend Chris Kurt. So Chris Curtin has Kurt Karma Fitness. He is the current GB agility team fitness coach, and he's a really lovely guy. If you're on social media and Instagram, check him out. We were having a conversation prior to me doing a podcast with him, in which we discussed about mental game, and we were talking about as a coach and what I do. And he said he spoke to I think, I can't remember who the person the background, but they had a background in it was rugby. That's right. It was the Welsh rugby team. I can't remember if he was the psychologist or involved with the Welsh rugby team. And he had a discussion with him, which basically said that human beings, we are, if we look at the survival of human beings, it's more conducive. If we talk about the flight or fight response and our lizard brain, it is far more conducive to survival to function from a place of apprehension and concern, because that was probably kept you alive longer. I.e., if you were skeptical, if you were dubious about going somewhere because you felt, oh, I might get hurt, you're going to survive, and then that's the I suppose the feature or prevalent feature that's most natural within most humans. And to program your brain to be, walk in a situation where there's a dog barking and there's you're over the local park, and to be in there bold as brass is actually more human than, because of how, if you look at it, and he was going into it in much more scientific jargon. I'm trying to simplify it, but essentially saying that human beings as a species, the way in which we survive so long is to having a level of apprehension and concern and fear. If we look back to the creation of human beings and so forth and so forth, and it's the same can be said for a lot of animals. If we look at dogs specifically, if we looked at remaining street dogs or from Europe, and when you bring them, they have a lot of hypervigilance, they have a lot of apprehension challenges, they have a lot of reactivity challenges, and the basis being that's probably what kept them alive for so long. Being a little bit suspicious about the strange people, the strange dogs, the strange noises, the strange environments, actually was conducive for them staying alive and therefore procreating, which meant that that thinking pattern and that those traits were going to be passed down and so forth. The bold as brass, confident one's probably going to go gallivanting to see the human across the road, like the overzealous golden retriever, and bam, it's going to be hit by a car, etc. Yeah. So when we think of it that way, we should all be more sympathetic to ourselves and empathetic to ourselves, because often it's our natural instinct to go, oh gosh, I'm scared in this situation. But you absolutely can, as Andrew said, start to recognize that in yourself and reprogram yourself to operate and think and function differently. Any thoughts on that, Angela?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's about being okay with that.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't even go as far as needing to do anything, to do any reprogramming or anything.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm scared.
Yeah, it's okay.
Probably a good reason to be scared, and maybe you ought to start running now.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a funny story. Where I went on safari once, and I was asking, and it was a walking safari, and how naive was I, right? I was thinking, this is nice. Like, why have they got guns? Right. And so we're walking along, and then I started to get curious, and I was sort of saying, so what would happen if we came across a herd of elephants and they were running at us? And the guide started telling me, well, you know, you'd run in a different direction, you'd throw a piece of clothing off a hat or something, and doing all this. Lo and behold, like, it's what happened.
Oh my God.
The next minute, they're going run, and you can hear because this elephant did a big trumpet and called a load of elephants over us, and
wow.
we were right on their path. I tell you, I didn't have to think about what to do.
Yeah, you knew. Yeah.
I didn't think, what shall I throw? My hat, my legs just took over and went run, right? Yeah. And it's like, as you say, but I'm putting myself in that situation. I had no idea what I would do, but that's what I did. Yeah. And our natural survival instinct kicks in, and we don't. But if we shy away from experiences, then I agree with you. We're not learning that we're okay. That we can be okay. You know, we if you think of fear and what it is in our bodies, this is my nursing coming in. It's a load of chemicals going round. It's a load. Where it becomes a problem is when we're sat in our living rooms being frightened about something that's not actually there, and we keep having that response, because then we're that's our thinking going a bit mental, and we're thinking it's true that it's happening now, and that's where it's just uncomfortable and not very good for our blood pressure. When we're doing stuff like that,
and our hearts and our our bodies, etc. And in terms of you know, when I love the fact that you as you said, you're normalizing people being apprehensive, people being anxious. It is part of the human experience. When you have a dog with challenges, I think to try to say, oh, just be confident, or you'll be fine, is an absolute, it's disingenuous and it's dishonest. It's okay to go, do you know what? I'm actually feeling quite anxious at the moment. And by just owning that, actually in itself alleviates some of that concern. Oh, okay, I'm feeling apprehensive. Right, where is that apprehension? You can check in with yourself, and it stops your brain going to orbit, and you'll just start to go, okay, let me regulate. One of the things that that's a great piece of advice is start to look at the environment. Oh, I'm wearing a blue top. I've got a red t-shirt on. Oh, it has a symbol on the right-hand side. And what that does, it brings your mind back to ground zero, where you can actually take, oh, actually, the other dog is 200 meters away and there's a gate behind me. Oh, okay, do you know what? I'm just going to crack the gate. I can create distance. I've got food on me. I can, so you start to go, oh, actually, all is not lost. I'm not panicking. I actually have tools and options now. Were you going to add
something? And I think it's having so if we don't get over involved in our thinking, we're present and in the moment. And when we're present and in the moment, and if we're not present, they're great things to do to get us, as you say, back into reality rather than in our heads, and start looking at, okay, this is happening. So what are my options? We become very, very aware. And when this is the thing, when we've got a quieter mind and we're totally aware of everything, and whether if it's a good feeling, it's brilliant. Just love it, right? And when we're in that good feeling, we're super aware of everything. And I would argue that is some of the way that we also survive, as long as we do. Because when we can get back to our own internal ground zero, if you like, we are amazing. Already. What stops us being so amazing is thinking that we're not.
So, Ange, just on that point, you've, as part of one of the members of the the team in the Relabelling Reactivity community, one of the constant questions that's posed to you, and I think you've given some fantastic advice, is about stigma and social perception of owners that have reactive dogs. And what is often shared is people feel very much judged. They feel very much being scrutinized. They feel as if they're being constantly watched. And you've given them some really sage advice to deal with that. So can you just share some things that you would say if you to a person who has a reactive dog and they feel as if they are being looked at, they're being judged, they're being scrutinized, they're being spoken of, or even they may have been, say social media is a blessing and a curse. What would you say to somebody, because you've had that numerous times and you've given some really brilliant words of wisdom?
Well, I think let's take social media, for example. If somebody is openly judging you and telling you, shooting on you, and telling you what you should do, what you should do, what you should do, shouldn't do, da 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 da. Well, you don't have to listen to it. And I know that's easier said than done, but like that's like just from outside, it's their opinion.
Yeah.
Their opinion is their stuff. It's not my business, really. You could just say thank you and bugger off. Or, is there something in it that you want to take any notice of? Then if there's a piece that lands, then use it and thank you very much. But it's just all someone else's opinion. It's someone else's judgment on you. Right, but it goes back to the channel. You don't have to listen to that channel either. You can go on Twitter instead and get off Facebook, go do somewhere else. Because those things can't really hurt you. They were just words issued by someone else. There's no power in them unless you give them the power.
Absolutely.
And the way we give them the power is to mull on them and start thinking they're true.
Yeah.
So I like to deal with truth. And so somebody else's opinion is never the truth. It's just an opinion. Truth is gravity. That's truth. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
That's somebody else's opinion. But this thing about it's like performance anxiety when they've not said anything, this happens. I just laugh at myself because, oh God, the other day when Bertie just went running over to this bunch of people and I was calling him and they actually said, oh, he doesn't want to be with his mum. And it's like, oh, that was like,
yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
And so I just ignored it. Walked off and then sort of shut all over myself and then sorted myself out. But most of the time they're not. Most of the time they don't give a monkey's. People are so wrapped up in their own stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're not really paying attention to what we're doing. So it's still our own judgment, but we're just like giving it to a third party.
Yeah.
And I think it might have been said already this week. What they think is not my business.
None of my business. Yeah, it's a lovely. It's a phrase that I really like. What other people think of me is none of my business. I really like that. I mean, I think as somebody that openly puts content and put my head above the parapet in social media, it's part of what I do. Obviously, you're always going to have people that are going to say, oh my God, he's absolutely amazing. I love Kamal Fernandez. You're going to have people that go, oh my God, he's the devil incarnate, can't stand him. And there's going to be people that go, oh, who's Kamal Fernandez? I've never heard of him. Now, in equal measures, I consciously choose not to put, it's lovely when people are kind towards you. And that's really lovely. But in the same vein, you are aware of keeping your feet on the ground and not allowing any of those things to necessarily reflect who you are as a person, because they're all taking a snapshot in time of you and your dog. So when your dog is over the park and it lunges at another dog, that's a snapshot in time. It doesn't mean that is who the dog is.
Absolutely.
And it's very easy to allow people's perceptions to play on your mind. Now, what often can happen is somebody will say something to you, and this is where there is, as Andrew said, take what you want from it. If you go, actually, they might be valid in that moment. Your dog, I don't know, let's just say, I'm going to use what Cassandra wrote. So if they said, oh, your dog doesn't have a brilliant recall, you might go, actually, do you know what? I think I can make that better. So now you're taking that negative and you're turning it to a positive to go, I'm going to work on that area because you've brought to my attention something that I have the power to improve. So now you're taking it from something
learning.
Yeah, exactly. And you're now using it to go, actually, do you know what? I think you're right. And that gives me now a game plan. That gives me somewhere to move forward. That gives me possibility. That gives me hope. That gives me things to do. So you're now switching it from being defensive and taking it as, oh, it's out of my hand, to actually, I can use this to my gains. And I think that's something to really reflect on. If, somebody says to you, your dog's X, Y, and Z, blah, blah, you go, hang on a second, you've never met my dog in your life. But if they make a comment of, oh, your dog could have a better recall, your dog could, whatever it is, take a moment and go, is there any validity in what they're saying? And if there is, take it. And if there isn't, shrug your shoulders and learn to move forward. Just to share a comment from one of the people watching. So Debbie B said, I'm okay with people saying something to my face. What bothers me is is all the behind the back talking. For me, that's a classic example of what people say about you is none of your business. And unless, to be honest, if people that do say things to my face, I'm grateful for. At least they're being truthful and they're being willing enough to speak candidly.
Yeah. So something about feedback. I agree with you about if people are saying stuff about your back, behind your back. Yeah, it's not great, but it's you know, it's them. It's more about them than you. And how do you know if they're doing it behind your back? It's like, just move.
I always remember there was a great, I can't remember who, it might have been a celebrity or something like that, but he said about criticism, he said, if they don't have my phone number to pick me up and call me and give me that, I take absolutely zero note. And he thought, actually, that's a really good way of looking at it. If that person isn't in that inner circle of that I have, where you can pick up the phone and call me and have a conversation about my dog's behavior, then why am I placing any energy or emphasis on what somebody I've never met before thinks of me? Now, obviously in today's society, we're constantly being, imposed imagery about how we should look, we should dress, should. Exactly. And we need to break that narrative and go, do you know what? It's such a it's so frustrating, isn't it, Angela? Because it's absolute make believe. It's absolute nonsense. It's absolute nonsense.
According to who is the question? According to whom? Who says I should wear this? It's like I said earlier on. It's like, where is it written? Who said that? Who said there's a right way? There's millions of ways to train dogs and reactive dogs and all of that. Who says that way is the right way? I mean, thank God there is millions, but there's no should, is there?
No, absolutely.
There's no should.
Absolutely.
But we have been brought up like that. That this is the way, and the social conditioning. But when you start spotting the conditioning and the social,
how it happens
for what it is, then you're halfway there.
You
start spotting it for what it is, and you don't have to be that way. Who are you?
Absolutely.
I want to say something about feedback. So what you said, if somebody says something to your face, like, and they're perhaps offering you even a criticism, or a development opportunity, shall we call it? Thank them for taking the time and the effort for doing it. You still might not like what they do, and you don't have to do what they say. You can either just say thank you. It's like a gift. Thank you. Take it to the charity shop if you don't like it, or keep it, or just put it on the mantelpiece until you're ready to have a look at it.
Absolutely.
So feedback, it comes in all forms. Even it's not always delivered in the best way.
Absolutely.
But for somebody to go out of their way and bother to tell you something is worth thanking them for. Now, I'm not talking about the critical, judgmental, or critical, but people come across judgy when they don't mean to be. Because they're just maybe in the moment themselves and something comes out, but maybe there's an intention there to help you, and it's working out the difference.
And you know what? The other thing on that note, actually, it's really interesting you say that, is often people will definitely project what they feel or what they can't do or what they can do onto others. So a constant thing that I will, if I'm walking my dogs, I have a lot of dogs. People say, "Oh, how can you walk that many dogs? You can't have control over that many dogs." Bearing in mind that their dog doesn't have a recall, etc., etc. It's not actually anything to do with the moment when my dogs are literally all waiting patiently, sitting, a mass number of dogs sitting with attention focused on me, and clearly demonstrating to them that I have control over these dogs. But in that moment, it's nothing to do with me. It's absolutely nothing to do with me. It's what they are articulating is, I don't know how you've done that. And therefore, because I can't achieve it with my dog, it therefore must be untrue or impossible. So it's nothing to do with them going, oh, hang on a second, this guy has 12 dogs and they all have brilliant control. And they're all sitting there waiting, looking at him, ignoring my dog that's jumping all over them. Well, if that's not a demonstration of somebody that does have control, I don't know what is. But in that moment, it's not for me to go, look, I'm doing. It's not that at all. You just go, okay, fine, I get what you're saying. Thank you very much for your feedback, and go, because if there was a camera looking on us, you would clearly see that I do have. Are you with me? So in those moments, it's always best to take that mindset of, or take that stance on it. Is it actually true? Do they have validity in what's saying? No, they really don't, because clearly I'm showing that I do have control. And say it's a reactive dog. You know what? I'm taking safety protocols. I've got my dog on a harness. I've got him on a head collar. I've got him on a muzzle. I'm creating distance. There's not much more I can do other than get an invisibility cloak. So I'm doing the best I can. If you've taken issue with my dog's behavior, that's okay. It's fine, because it probably, brings up something in you. I wish you well. Thank you very much. I'm going to go about my day. And I think sometimes we can place so much emphasis on what other people think of us. And that's where we do ourselves a great disservice.
Yeah. And it's like the guy who said that, he doesn't want to be with me.
Yeah.
And I could have stood there and argued the toss, but
absolutely.
What was the point?
It
was just a remark he made, and I just brushed it off as a remark it was, and then got to work on trying to not let.
And the ironic thing is, well, both your dogs are real mummy's boys. That's the ironic thing, isn't it? Really,
I know, it's made me laugh. Yeah, but not that day. But what they didn't realise, the spot he generally runs to, but they thought he was going to them. But it's a tree that he always runs to, and they happened to be there that day. But so what? I would have still preferred it if I called him, if he'd have come. But he didn't. He didn't. Not on that day.
At the end of the day, Angela, they're dogs. And the thing is, again, the whole thing, they're dogs. And again, that's a really important thing to take away, is how Angela and myself deal with those moments where people that don't know you pass judgments based on a snapshot in time. And having phrases, having things. I always, thank you very much for your feedback. I appreciate it. That's my go-to, rightly or wrongly. Or I go, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I've got a bit ear problem. Sorry, and walk off. Or I just wave and just walk off. There's no point in getting in. I've had it numerous times where, I'll have my dogs waiting. Again, because I normally do when I see other people, and their dogs will be, barking, and then you shouldn't have blah blah blah, or they'll be doing the shouldas at me. I'll just say thanks, no problem, I appreciate that. And there's no point for getting into a dialogue, and also holding it, because that's where often it can grow from being a tiny little worm to a massive python, and that's when it consumes you. So I don't know if anybody's got any questions for Angela before we start drawing things to a close. It's been a great conversation, Angela. Thank you very much for your time as always. So I'm going to, whilst people are mulling over, they have questions. Angela, Kat, Lou, all part of the Relabelling Reactivity Team, a community which they're absolutely fantastic people. They are supportive, they are collaborative, they are uplifting, they are empowering, they're all the things. And that's the community. And obviously the people that I've got as part of the team, Kat, Lou, Angela, inspire and create that energy within the group. If you have a dog that has reactivity challenges and you want to make impactful, long-lasting change with your dog's behavior and also your confidence, join Relabelling Reactivity. I'm going to be talking about it a little bit more tomorrow and telling you how it works, so that if you're thinking about joining, you're going to have a better perspective. When you go to the website and you sign up, there is a 3-day totally free trial period in which you can just get an insight into how the group works, or how the website works. Get familiar with it. And if it's not for you, I wish you nothing but the best. But if you want to become part of that community, as I said, you can join at any point. Angela, I don't think there's any questions. Thank you very much for your time. How can people reach out to you or learn about your stuff? Go on.
Oh, right. Okay. So you can, I'm on Facebook, Angela Watson. I didn't put my name on there, the full name. So you can find me on Facebook easily. I've got a website which I'm developing, called Walking Round in Circles. And it's
www.walkingroundincircles.com.
Yeah. And you can have a read of that. That's a mixture of dog stuff and human stuff. And they're the main two places, really. Or in the group. Even, if you join the group, I'll be in the group. I was just going to say, the thing that makes Relabelling Reactivity, why I was really pleased and glad that you invited me to join it, Kamal, is because I think you're absolutely right. There's a lot of focus and a lot of attention on dogs' behaviour and trying to understand the dog and working that out, which is brilliant. But it's a partnership. There's two people in this thing, and if we don't, we can be better. I think we can be better, and dogs can help us, and we can help our dogs. But we are part of the relationship. We're a perfect system. We're a perfect system together. And what I've noticed in the group, especially more recently with some of the people who were really struggling perhaps at the beginning, and now they're telling stories of how they're handling things and how they're feeling much better about stuff, and that they're forgiving themselves and being compassionate with themselves when stuff has happened, and it's changed. You can see how it changes people's lives and perspective, because
if I'm honest, I didn't think consciously of that happening in that manner. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, I knew there was the human entity just to talk about. I mean, obviously, I did that as part of the Dog Academy as well. My role was to work with the people to try and get them to make that connection. But I suppose I underestimated how impactful it would be for people, and how once they made that shift in their mindset of, first and foremost, is just being kinder to themselves. People, when they first join the group, they are so tough on themselves. It's like, geez, Lord, God, like you said, I love the analogy of, would you do this to your best friend? It's like, well, I wouldn't want to be your friend if you spoke to me like that. And it's like, they absolutely crucify themselves. And you're like, oh, like, why? I don't understand why you're being so tough. And what heady aspirational goal do you think that you're not meeting? It's like, you're just doing the best you can. Yes. And I think that's what the group really does facilitate. And it is a safe space for people to be able to share their struggles and vent. Sometimes they go in there and just vent, and you'll have people that will support you and lift at you and hear you. And then they have days when they're like, I just want to share that, I made this tiny baby step forward, and everybody will be
celebrate.
Absolutely. And I think that's really, really critical. But yeah. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap things up. It's been fantastic. Obviously, we've got a final day tomorrow of the deep dive into Relabelling Reactivity Deep Dive 2024, which will be at, I believe it says 6 p.m. I'm going to just double check that. I'm pretty sure it's at 6 p.m. tomorrow. So looking forward to that. Again, that will give you an opportunity to ask any final questions that you have about the course, about reactivity, whether you're thinking about joining, whether you're sitting on the fence, whether it's for you. You can ask that all tomorrow. Angela, as always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your time. I really do appreciate it. Check out. I've shared Angela's website on the chat. So if you want to check that out, you're more than welcome. Reach out to Angela, obviously, and be part of the community. But yeah, enjoy whatever you're doing. The sun is just about out. It's trying to come out. So we'll enjoy the rest of the day. Take care, all, whatever you're doing.
Bye. Bye, everyone.